Hey, imagine with me for a second. Okay, you still got an imagination, right? Imagine seeing a battered and beaten Jesus on his way to die, the most dishonorable death. Imagine watching as nails are driven into his hands and feet. Imagine the uncertainty as the sky above you grows dark. Imagine your sorrow as Jesus cries out loudly and draws his last breath. The bloody scene, the horror that unfolded there before you. Imagine seeing God rip the curtain that once separated the most holy place from top to bottom, an area so sacred that only the high priest is allowed to access this once a year. Stop and really picture this scene unfolding because Jesus died and gave us an all-access pass to the most holy place, the throne room of God. We did nothing to deserve it. He did it all out of grace. Jesus is the true waymaker. His death unlocked the gates of heaven for whoever calls him Lord. Whoever we don't have to wait until we get there to enter the throne room of God. Every time we pray, every time we seek God's presence and allow his word to soak into our hearts, we are standing before God. If you haven't ever done it, I encourage you to study the theology of heaven and earth and how the temple weaves its way in and out of that theology. The temple was such a holy place and a sacred place for so many years and for decades and decades and decades and decades. And it still is. But the location of the temple has changed. First off, God wasn't supposed to just be in the temple and have this holy room where we can access him once a year. He wants to be with us. That's what Eden was all about. His creation was all about. But we were separated from him. Access was limited. But this day on the cross, when Christ died, the veil of the curtain was ripped. And the temple of God moved from the Temple Mount into our heart. That's where the Christ lives now. His Spirit lives in us today and now. And all we have to do is realize that veil was ripped. And all we have to do is pull the veil aside and look inside. And we are in his presence. His presence is everywhere. If you want to experience his presence, you don't have to come to a church. You don't have to come to a seminar or a conference or experience this big worship atmosphere. All you have to do is be aware of his presence. That's what moves the veil. That's what moves the separation. It's just being aware of his presence. And so today, realize that Jesus did the unimaginable as he went to the cross, took our sin to the grave, and did something so much greater in restoring this new covenant in our lives. Would we realize that? Would we remember it? Would we imagine what that day was like? And would we live out a life of gratefulness and gratitude and a life that is aware of his presence and let his presence work and be active in our hearts, in the temple it's within us, and let it affect the way we live? I know it's a little more serious today, but I really want you to understand what this is like, because there's no more holies of holies. There's no more separation. Because of Christ, we are in his presence and we are with him at all times. Have a good day.